We've got some
Hey, I'm Luis.
And
I'm Luis. And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit. And today, we're bringing them to you so you can take action immediately and start creating real content momentum.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah. Fun fact. One of our first clients was a dentist. Why is that relevant? Because today's guest is the one responsible for putting the smile back on the dentist while helping them grow their practices predictably, profitably, at scale.
Now the question is, can we do that regardless of the industry? That's what we'll be discovering with today's epic guest. But before that, a huge shout out to Michael Johnson for connecting us. Go listen to his episode 110.
So good.
Go listen to it right now.
Actually, not now. Like after this episode. Okay.
Go listen after the episode.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's right. Come on,
now,
Fonz.
back to today's guest. Take it away.
Another fun fact. He is from Utah. And as we all know by now, all successful people come from Idaho, Utah, and Canada. Looks like we'll have to move there soon. Jokes aside, today's guest has hosted a mastermind for the last 4 years and is recognized as a top 10 funnel designer by Russell Brunson himself.
That's pretty epic. That's very, very, very epic.
Yes.
Can't wait. Please welcome amazing husband and father, founder of Dental Leads, and maybe our future neighbor. Who knows? Jarem Atkinson! Welcome, Jarem.
I love it. Thank you, guys. You guys are hilarious. Love the energy. So good.
Thank you. Hopefully one day we can, we're saying this behind this stage. Hopefully one day we can do it live in Utah with all of our Utah friends.
Oh, that's so fun.
Absolutely. That'd be rad.
Maybe by then we'll already be neighbors. Who knows?
Who knows? I know. Fonz is like dying to move out there. Fun fact, my wife is Canadian, so hence I'm also successful. Just putting it out there. But dude, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's been wonderful. I've heard many good things about you. Fonzie did not share any of the details on your call, so why don't you share with us and the audience a little bit of your backstory? Where you're coming from and why you do what you do now.
Very good. I love it. So yeah, like you said, we kind of dove into it a little bit before, but how far do we want to go back, right?
Well, let's go.
Yeah, give me an idea.
Pre-entrepreneurial blog.
I mean, Dad just met.
Okay, gotcha. So we'll go back to my college days if you're cool with that. I went to BYU or Brigham Young University. Anyone who's aware of that, go Cougars. Going into college, I met my wife. Actually, we dated in high school, and so kind of our second year of college, we got married, and I was studying business at the time and dabbling in architecture. And my wife went through a faster program and became a nurse. So she got certified to be a nurse, to take care of patients, all that type of stuff. One of the big challenges that we ran into when we were early on married was, everywhere she applied for work as a nurse, now that she has her degree and everything, everyone wanted experience, which she didn't have because she had just come right from school, right? And that's kind of just a big, huge, messy challenge. And I was still going to school. I still had another couple years left of school. Yeah. And so we were just trying to work odd jobs here, there, where we could to be able to make money. In fact, my wife at one point, even though she was a nurse and had her degree and had about $40,000 in debt from that, my wife was working at Shopko. If you guys are aware of that, it's a pretty rundown, at least in Utah, it's a pretty rundown, store. And she was bagging groceries, right? Yeah. So it was a pretty humbling thing for her. And while that was happening, I felt really bad because I still had school in front of me and stuff to do. And so I was trying to look for a way to be able to make a bit more money as well. And we happened to run into an opportunity that literally was pretty much the only thing putting food on our table at the time. And that was doing nightly security at a local RV dealership. So for a lot of people who don't know this, I'm not giving you ideas here. But when you go to an RV dealership and you have these big, huge RVs that are like on the low end, 100, 150,000, all the way up to 500 or 600 grand. They have a lot of theft, a lot of problems with that. People break in and, steal a lot of parts, steal TVs, all that type of stuff out of RVs. And one of the challenges that we had is, we got this job to be able to make a little bit of money, and we had to, we stayed overnight there at the RV dealership. We just slept in one of the RVs, and every single hour throughout the night, we needed to hop out and, take a flashlight and go look around and make sure that no one was up to anything. Right. So even though we call it security, like I didn't have a gun on me or anything else like that. In fact, I never really thought of, what if I see somebody doing something, like, what the heck am I supposed to do? Right. And it was a very humbling, scenario to be in, a pretty trying thing. When we were doing that, I can tell you now, I have 3 kids. I've never woken up as many times in the night with my kids as I did doing the RV thing. Right. Wow. And this was actually from like October to February, which is like the coldest months in Utah. So we had tons and tons of snow and just absolutely freezing. Right. Wow. So that was really trying. It was also really trying for me as a new husband, where it's like, hey, let's get married. I'm here to take care of you. And then that's not happening. Right. Yeah. So amidst the challenge of trying to do that, I started tinkering around, trying to learn what, marketing is all about. I'd seen some people do some stuff online, and this was at the time where like Facebook was really coming into play as a serious place for businesses to be. I don't even think Facebook advertising was out yet, but this was just, when people are posting on Facebook, which is a lot of what you guys talk about, right? It's all about content, right? And I happened to get a job. Was actually working for a company called Zag. They make like all the like screen protectors and stuff that you use every single day. And I was posting on Facebook for them. And a little bit into my job there, I started dabbling with the advertising side of Facebook. That was kind of more coming online as something popular to do, and started getting some good results for the company there. And in the meantime, as word kind of gets around about what you're doing, I happen to have a family friend who, came to me, who is a dentist. And they basically said like, hey, like we've heard you're doing some stuff on Facebook, that's more important and more meaningful than just, watching another cat video and finding out what your cousin ate for dinner last night. Right. That's what I tell my clients now today. Right. Like we heard that you were doing some stuff to sell. Right. And they said, we have our dental practice. We need more patients in our practice, and we're kind of struggling, trying to fill seats in our practice. Like, is there any way you can help us? And of course, if a family friend approaches me, I'm like, yeah, I'll give it my best shot. I can't guarantee anything because I've been over here selling like phone cases and stuff like that, but let me see what I can figure out. And I started tinkering around with running ads for them. And it took a little bit of a process, some trial and error. But we figured out, how to take that same strategy and apply it to the dental industry, figured out how to, run ads and get them more patients in the practice and help them to fill seats and get people taken care of. And for me, that was kind of like a little light bulb, like sparked the inspiration type moment for me, where I realized there was nothing about working at Zag that I didn't like, but I'd always kind of felt like eventually I wanted to have my own thing. Growing up, my dad has his own business. I think he's had his now for about 35 years. So I kind of felt like that was the direction I eventually wanted to go. But I started tinkering around with this and said, well, can I take this same idea, something like this structure, and apply it to other businesses? And, again, some trial and error, but found out like, yes, I could. I ran some ads for a car dealership. I ran some ads for a solar panel sales company, continued with that same dentist. And in fact, I still work with that dentist now today, and worked with a bunch of other local industries, and, eventually decided to narrow in on just the dental space because I love it and I know it back to front, and it's been a wild ride, lots of, ups and downs, that type of stuff, but I really love it. So
that's awesome. Yeah. What a story for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I know sometimes, it can be challenging, sharing some aspects of the story, and I can't imagine what you had to go through on the RV phase, you know, in the winter, like we were telling you behind cameras, we're from Venezuela. The only sweater that we had was what to go to the movie theater, man. And I feel you, man. So thank you for sharing that. And, you know, I wrote something here was like, out of pain, you start with, you know, your solution, your online, and for us it was not that. It was I mean, it was also out of pain, but in a different environment, right? Like for us was heat in the garage with the screen printing machine, 95 degrees Florida weather, right? But do you think a lot of people kind of start from that, you know, when they start creating, when they start looking for another solution, do we always wait for a situation like that where we're experiencing some kind of internal, emotional, physical pain to like change environment? Do you think that's common, or like how what do you think?
I mean, obviously I can only really speak for myself. I know there are definitely people out there that are super motivated and may not have any problem or challenge really going on, and they just want to charge forward, and big props to them. For me, honestly, it was much more of the pain. And again, like I was newly married. I'm like my pride and where I'm here to take care of my new wife is like, I'm here to provide, especially so you're not freezing and waking up every single night, you know, to do all this ridiculous stuff to make money. So for me, like moving from that position of fear and challenge and frustration was awesome to be able to channel those emotions. And I think everybody has those emotions, but to be able to channel those in the direction of, hey baby, like I know we're trying a couple things and there might be a little bit of risk here, but like my wife was super on board because I think she felt that same drive toward it. So, you know, there may be other people who are driven more so by other things, but I think it is pretty common for us to be in that position that is challenging, that's where we don't want to be, and we want to get to another spot and make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned that your dad has his own business for like 35 years, right? Yep. I'm curious, like, because obviously he must be an entrepreneur as well. So that probably was in the family. What memories do you have, or what lessons, right, did you acquire from your dad moving into this stage that you were looking for, again, providing for your new wife at the moment? I'm curious.
No, that's a good question. So I mean, there's a bunch of different things I've learned, but my dad is definitely a self-driven type individual. He didn't, I don't think at any point ever, you know, hire some business coach or mentor or anything else like that. And I don't have anything against that, but for him, the business he's in, he actually installs and provides security systems to people. It's funny enough, actually, the way that we got this RV job, he was actually in the process of building out an elaborate outdoor security system for the RV dealership. And in the meantime, while he was working to build that out, like it was a big custom job that took a few months to put together. In the meantime, it was like, well, they're still getting, you know, stuff moved out, you know, at night. Like you'd come and walk the park and you'd see, oh, look, they just cut a hole through the fence and they snuck right in. Right. Wow. So it was through my dad that we were able to get that job. But one of the great things that I remember and still to this day admire him for is, for him, it's not so much about like what the actual product is, but it's about identifying someone who has a problem and really working hard to articulate a solution for them, and then providing that solution for them. Like we all have problems, right? And especially if you hop into a business, you know, we already wear hats just in normal life, and you start your own business, you have 50 other hats you have to wear. And so those are problems that you can provide a solution to at the end of the day. And really I think that's a natural place where business can happen, when someone has a problem and you can provide a solution. So I think taking the time to listen and clearly understand somebody's problem can be where you can find a great solution for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's incredible, right? Listening to other people and understanding their problems, right? I personally never saw, you know, pre this journey that I'm living right now, I never saw entrepreneurship as simple as it's just about listening to people's problem and then taking the initiative to solve those problems and then finding a way to deliver that solution to the person that needs it, right? It's actually pretty simple when you put it that way. And I'm curious, was that what led you to marketing in a way? Because I'm curious, you said like, you said it quickly. You're like, oh, and then I developed this knack for marketing, right? But in my mind, I'm like, why caught your attention? Why was sort of marketing? Because if you saw, your dad solving problems here and there, I feel like you would have been, looking maybe for some of these problems. But what was it about marketing that caught your attention?
Oh, that's a good question. So actually, when I was in school, like I said, I first went into school to become an architect. I had done architectural drafting for about 6 years, and that was right about the time the economy tanked. Like the housing market. So they were absolutely the industry that was hit the worst, and so that kind of caused me to like pump the brakes for a minute and say like, hey, is this really what I want to go into? Like, I don't know how long it's going to be until things come back out again. Like, is there a way for me to find an industry or a line of work that's less volatile, right? It doesn't have as many peaks and valleys, that type of stuff. And so I slowly pivoted from architecture over to business. And, when you're starting into a business degree, they have a lot of general classes. So I had like I don't remember what it was called, maybe like a marketing 101 class, right? And for me, I don't remember like exactly what it was. I don't really have some big romantic story to it or anything else, but I just love the idea of marketing. Loved kind of thinking through that process, and especially seeing, how one person could sell a widget and another person could sell a widget and sell so many more of them, based on how they frame their story and how they go about selling it. So that was really appealing to me. And when I would think about, again, these industries and trying to play something, a strategy for my career that can be safe, but I can also make some good money. I'm like, well, every single one of these businesses, regardless of industry, they all need marketing. So what if I get really good at that, and they'll still be able to do what they want to do, and then I'll just be able to help them along the way. So that, again, for me was like, all these businesses have problems, and I could be a solution for them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I resonate with that part of the story, because a lot of people, especially, well, I think us too, like we struggle with that. It was like, what do we do? Right. Like, and our whole identity was soccer players. When growing up, every decision was based on, we're going to go play, professionally. And we got to play in Europe. We got here because of soccer. But then when that ended, it's like, okay, what now? Right. And you mentioned it's like loving the idea of something, and I feel like that's a pretty good indicator to kind of move forward with that thing. And through college, I had a similar experience on entrepreneurship, right? Like I was going to business school, everything was super general in my case. I wasn't really enjoying it, and then I went to an entrepreneurship minor, and it was like these very introductional like classes where we got to interact with a lot of people locally that were doing amazing things, and that caught my attention. Like, man, that is my vehicle. But then on entrepreneurship, what am I doing? Right. And then we kept like looking at these like little indicators like, oh man, okay, well, screen printing t-shirts. Hell no. Okay. Well, stickers. Hell no. Okay. Whatever. Like next. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like we grow up in this, education system where always you're listening. What are you going to be when you grow up? Right. It's like, what if I want to try many things when I grow up? Right. What if I want to go from one to the other one? So it's interesting because honestly, I've never known what I wanted to be when I grew up besides a soccer player, right? When I was a kid. And I remember we did this test at our school back in Venezuela, and they came back with like the top 3 options that you were best qualified, like your personality to be, right? I don't remember the other 2, but I remember one very specific one. And for me, it was like caretaker. It was super weird. I was like, what? I was like, I don't want to be a forest caretaker. You know?
You do have the spirit for a forest caretaker.
Now I look back at it and I'm like, well, I do love being outside, walking in nature and stuff. But it's funny, then you grow up saying, thinking in your head, it's like, I have to be one thing. I have to dedicate myself to one thing. When entrepreneurship it's a lot about, okay, it's different problems. I can jump from one problem to another one. Even in marketing, right? Like what you do with the dentist, I'm sure you come across many of their problems inside their own business, and you have to address them differently.
Absolutely.
So, okay. When we were faced with the decision we have to niche down, we had people like, you guys have to do it, because when we had the agency, we're doing like 7 different things, right? And obviously we couldn't scale. It was like a freelancing gig for the both of us, and we're like, hey, we were actually marketing ourselves as the anti-marketing agency, right? And people are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Tell me more. I'm like, well, why do you want to hear?
Yeah,
right?
it was the total opposite of what you do, right? We were not predictable, and we were not profitable, and we couldn't scale at all.
Exactly.
You know?
So obviously that brought some pain, some lessons. But then, when the mastermind, like, you guys have to like niche down, you guys have to offer like one thing, right? And then we drew all these processes in the whiteboard, and we're like, okay, which one are we doing? And content was something that kept coming up through the conversations. Like you said, I'm listening to my audience, I'm listening to my clients, and then what's happening, right? And we decided to go through that. Fancy wasn't a big fan at the very beginning, right? But we were really scared to be like, we don't want to be just the content guys for dentists, for example. We don't just want to be the content guys for dietitians, because we had like these classic, type of businesses working with us. We had like fitness studios, we had dietitians, we have XYZ, right? And we're like, we just don't want to niche down on that, right? And then what we found was like we niche down on the process, on how we create and multiply content. Now, how was that experience for you? I mean, you did mention a little bit on your experience with dentists before, and it came from a friend, but how were you comfortable with that? Because I mean, internally for us, that was such a big conversation.
Sure.
And maybe a lot of people are hesitant. I'm like, okay, should I go with like one type of business, or should I do a system? Like, what's your story there?
No, that's a very good question for sure. And I don't think there is necessarily like a right answer that fits everything. Like, obviously the choice that I made fits really well for me. So there may be people who listen or watch this that like what I say doesn't really speak to them. But for me, so my initial business that I created, where I was basically, running ads on Facebook, and then later we added Instagram and funnels, all that process to help grow businesses. We were doing it for lots of different businesses. I guess probably the same or the similarity among them all is it was local businesses, right? So we weren't doing stuff, at some big, huge national level. I like the process of, let's dabble in Facebook, let's dabble in Instagram, but at a very local level. I think it makes it feel much more real for prospective customers, that type of stuff. But for me, as I was going about doing this, again, other people may be different. I'm sure there's people who are much, much better at this than I am. But when I started to do it, my first client that I had was a dentist. And then right after them, I added on a restaurant. And then later I added a solar sales company, right? They go out and sell solar panels for various companies out there. And then I added real estate. And, every time I would jump into one of these niches, like if I'm honest, if I'm really trying to do my absolute best for the client, there's a ton of time I need to take to research and to understand all the little nuances of each industry, right? Like the way that you get buyer leads or seller leads in real estate, like while the structure of the funnel and stuff is pretty similar to dental, like there's so many little tiny nuances that are so different than each one of these industries. And for me, like that was a very hard thing to swallow, to try and figure out. And I had never created my company with the intent of like, hey, we're going to service every type of local business out there. Like I was just trying to get a feel for what was good for me, what did I like, and what was profitable, right? And even though you're talking about money, some people may feel awkward with money, but I think you have to really try and look for the combination of like what you love to do, the people you love to serve, and the people who have money, the people who are willing to pay you, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
when I advertised for the restaurant, it's like, okay, well, you just pay me my monthly fee to run ads. Now, how many cheeseburgers do we have to sell to break even on that? Like it's a hard sell, it's just a little bit different. And so that was part of why I moved over to the dental industry, because I realized, I mean, like number one, everyone pictures this black box where I can put in $1 and I want to get 2 out, right? And of course we want that because if we can put 1 in and get 2 out, what if we put in 100 and get 200 and so on, right? But for like the dental space, if they know their stuff and they're very good at taking care of patients, and if I can just come in and help a little bit on the business and marketing expertise, they should easily be able to put in $1 and get 50 out, or put in $1 and get 100 out. I mean, depending on what you're advertising. And so I just didn't want like the super tight concern around finances to be an issue there. I wanted the latitude and flexibility to, hey, let's go after your ideal customer. And I know we can get them affordably, but I also know that I can get you a result very quickly that you'll be very happy about. And for me, the dental space is very, very good for that, for those parameters I put in place.
Yeah, that's you're just like giving me so many flashbacks right now because actually when we started our social media marketing agency, right, like 4 years ago, and we were trying to, we were just learning. We're like, yeah, we're gonna give ads to this restaurant and we're going to build a funnel here. We're just literally trying anything. We would go, what do you need? Whatever they say, we would say, yes, we can do it. And then we would go to YouTube and be like, how do we do this? But our very first client was actually a restaurant, right? And the food was absolutely amazing. It was delicious. But their marketing was the total opposite, right? And we go there and we start pitching them and all this stuff, right? Just so you have an idea, I was like all dressed up with a suit and a tie. I was like all trying to look all professional there.
The total opposite of what you see now.
Yeah, the total opposite of what you see right now, definitely. And we were selling them right on this fact that he could get more views on social media than spending money with a magazine. That was it. That was the fact that we were trying to sell him with, right? We weren't selling him on, hey, what is the lifetime value of one of your customers, right? And at the same time, I'm wondering now, I don't think they knew that, right? Because they didn't know, they didn't know their marketing. They didn't know their numbers that well. And they didn't know exactly how many people they have to bring in to break even. And that's what you're saying, that is important that for the business to understand as well. And like I said, it's different for different industries. So, for example, if a ticket at a restaurant, let's say their average ticket is like $20 and they're spending with you $1,500 per month on a retainer, and that doesn't even include the ad cost, you're going to have to sell a lot of food, right? You're going to have to bring a lot of people into the restaurant to justify that expense. So when eventually we kept learning and we're like, wow, this makes no sense for us whatsoever, because now it just turned into like a toxic relationship, because they're like, oh, what are you guys doing? And we're like, oh, well, we're trying to do this, but we need to sell like 200, tacos or whatever. It became a challenge. And I remember the day we actually met our dentist, who was one of our first clients as well. And he actually does.
He creates smiles.
He creates smiles.
Smiles design.
He does like veneers and stuff like that. So it's a very high end,
like really good cosmetic work.
Yeah, exactly. And when he was looking up, he was like, I can sell one of these for like 40 grand. And I were like, what? So if we bring one client, like we'll be set for like 2 months, 3 months, right? Like, and that was the point for us. That was a huge liable moment, especially when trying to find this niche, because we're like, okay, we got to look at the money side of things. Like, it is a fact. Like, I can be extremely passionate about restaurants, but now personally, I'm not going to go offer advertisement to restaurants. I will probably try to figure out what is their problem now and what is a viable solution that I can give them that can solve that problem. So what you're saying is just making me remember all these things, right? And I think it's outstanding and is incredible. The fact that you also said, I need to spend all this time learning the craft. You need to be an insider in these people's business to fully serve them. How do you get to that realization that you needed to be an insider there?
For me, that was kind of I got there through trial and error, right? Through times where I had figured out a couple things that worked in the dental space, and then I'd try and go to another space like real estate and try and apply it. And of course I'm successful when they're successful. And, in real estate, that's getting leads so that people could sell their house through them, or so that they can buy a house. And if they're not successful, like it's really tough for them. And like you said, it makes a toxic relationship. I think business can naturally flow just great when things make sense, and like sales and things like that don't have to be a big issue. But when I was not understanding the little nuances within their business, and I was not getting them meaningful results, like then it felt like I was, kicking up against the wall, and there was friction there, and like that's not what any of us want. And so, definitely diving in deep to understand really all the numbers to a business. I mean, if your business is like what I'm doing, agency related, or even if it's your own business, and it's not like an agency model, like you've got to know your numbers really well, so that you can make sense of things. You can know how much you can spend in in advertising or in marketing. You can know if you can buy that next, piece of equipment or something that you're going to put in your process, if you can afford to hire a salesperson or like whatever it is, like you've got to know those numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the challenges that you see with the business owners that you help, right? Like, because I come from the brick and mortar, same thing. Like, I was on the sales side for a fitness studio, and I didn't know what I didn't know. Like, I wish I can go back, now and run those studios. I think we will kill it. But the same thing, like when you have these business owners, right? They have their eyes in so many places. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming you deal with this, or your team deals with this almost on a daily basis. Maybe not. Maybe you're, finding your dream customer, right? But what are some of the challenges that business owners encounter when investing in, paid media, or even trying to deal with content in general?
No, that's a very good question. So, I mean, now that we've niched down just into the dental space, even though that's more predictable, and I've been niched down in the space for almost 4 years now, wow. One of the challenges is every single practice is different. I don't know all the super detailed numbers to it, but the great majority of practices we work with, the dentist himself or herself is usually the owner to the practice. And every dentist is different. Like I have some dentists I work with, where they have a really great business and marketing head on their shoulders. And so they are taking care of patients' needs. And then when I come to talk about marketing, like they are the ones, they're my point of contact. They love, getting into the weeds of it all and figuring out what type of offer we should run, how we should go about all that. And then I have dental practices where I've actually never even met the dentist himself. Like he's phenomenal at what he does, but he's the type of dentist where he loves to come in, take care of patients, and leave. Right. And that's fine. So he relies heavily on an office manager. And so usually that's my point of contact. And so even though we have variety in the type of dentist that we work with, one thing for sure that we have to get buttoned up and get a real clear head on is, if in the short term, if I'm going to be successful for them, they have to know where to pick up the ball after I, am dribbling with it and pass it off to them. But in the long term, like if I'm just bringing them leads, like a lead is not going to put food on the table. It's not going to pay for hygienists and assistants, all that type of stuff. And so in our process, we don't assume that a dentist has trained their front end staff. When I go over to Facebook or to Instagram and I run ads and I'm sending people through a funnel and sending that information, to the office there, I don't assume that their staff knows how to sell. And sometimes sales is a touchy word in the dental space. So part of what we do is empowering them and training them so that they know with confidence how to pick up where we left off, know what to say on the phone, know when to say it, know what to say in person and not on the phone, like all that type of stuff, right? Because again, like I'm successful when they are, and success for dental practice is butts and seats, people receiving treatment and paying for it. And so that's a little bit of the challenges, like, hey, let's get down into the weeds a little bit so we can clearly understand, number one, so I can understand what type of dentist you are, right? If you want to have these awesome marketing conversations with me or not, I'm good either way, but I need to know how you function as a dentist, and then from there, let's get an idea of where your staff is at, what kind of coaching they need, because again, I'm not just here as some, fly-by marketer of, well, you paid me this month and now I'm going to send you leads and well, they didn't convert. Well, too bad. I'm running off into the sunset, right? Like I'm here for the long term. And for us to make that work, we need to figure out everything that goes into place to help you guys be as successful as possible.
Yeah. That is a great lesson you gave right there. Well, two great lessons. First, care about your customer. Don't just be like the other agencies that are like, yeah, here your leads, and then like you said, run into the sunset, right? Like you truly care for these people. Like you said, if they win, you're winning as well. And the other one that I really don't want people to miss, you were saying, we can give them the leads, but we assume they don't have staff that is trained in sales, right? That they don't really know exactly how to close these leads. And you are thinking 1-2 steps ahead, right? How can I add
that's
value?
More like 5 steps ahead.
Yeah, 5 steps ahead. You're like, how can I add value to my offer, right? So they have no excuses, literally, to not succeed, right? You are giving them all the tools, all the resources for them to be able to succeed. At the end of the day, of course, like their success is not fully dependable on you. They are the ones that have to take actions, and they're going to be the ones probably that have to close those sales. But you thought in advance, okay, my solution, is going to create a follow-up problem, right? Which is you're going to have to start talking about, on the phone. They're going to have to start having more sales calls, more follow-ups. Do they know how to do that, right? What? Whether they do or not, if you include that as a part of your offer, now people are going to see the value, right? And by increasing your value, then as well, your price is more than justified. And people are going to be like, you know what? This is awesome. My staff is trained in sales, but you know what? Some extra training never hurt anybody. So, I mean, I think that was an incredible lesson. And I really don't want people, whoever is listening right now, to miss on that. Because think about your offer for those that are listening. Think about your offer, what you're offering to your audience right now, and think, what is a follow-up problem that I am creating? For example, we realized that we were giving all this content to people right after, and then they were like, okay, how do I distribute all this? So guess what?
Or even, how do I find it, right? Like they're getting 30, 40 pieces on a Google Drive link, right? And then they're like, you haven't delivered anything. And we're like, well, it's in your Drive folder.
It's right there,
But they're like, what's the Drive folder? And we're like, what? So on our end, we came up with a Content Hub solution. It's a membership site. They log in and all their content is right there. So it's like, where is it? Go to your Content Hub. It's right there.
That's awesome.
So those are the things, dude, and it resonates so much. Thank you so much for sharing, because when we first started, we thought it was just that one solution, and then that's. But your clients will come in and they will give you the opportunity to get your business to a whole new level, like you've done with your practice. So thank you so much. And everybody listening that wants to take that route, keep that in mind. As you move forward, listen to the problems that your solution is creating, and then create a solution for that, and create the next solution for that.
Yeah,
and it's amazing.
For sure. Yeah, and I just want to add one more bit to that.
Yes,
absolutely. I don't have the book around me, but I recommend anyone go out to buy it. It sounds childish, and it is, but I think of the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. I don't know if you guys have read that before.
What is it called again? If you give
a mouse a cookie. Right? It's a pretty old school book. Awesome to read to little kids and stuff. But if you haven't read the book, I mean, the premise of the book is it's basically just a continuation of like what happens if I give a mouse a cookie, right? And again, if you haven't read the book, just assume this is like a friendly mouse that plays with kids, that type of stuff, right? If you give a mouse a cookie, like he's hungry, but he's going to need a glass of milk to go with it, right? And if you give him the milk, he's going to need a straw to go with it, right? So now he's drank the milk, and after he's drank the milk, he's going to need a napkin. And after he's just had his cookie and cleaned up his face, he's going to be tired, so he's going to need a nap, right? And so the book kind of goes through that. It's just a little picture book for kids.
Yeah.
But I think the premise of it is kind of the same as what we're talking about here, right? Like we can provide solutions to people's problems, but always remember that as I provide a solution to someone's problem, I have not, taken their list of 50 problems down to 49. They will have a 50th problem, a next problem. It'll just be a different problem, right? Yeah. So in the dental space, like they have a problem of not enough leads, right? So I get them leads. We fix that problem. Like now it's, okay, we have all these people on the schedule. We got to make sure they show up, right? So we've got to figure out a solution to that. And even if you bring them all the way across that, it's like, hey, like these guys did what they told us they were going to do. They got us, 30 or 40 new patients in a month. Well, it's like, okay, if you're good at retaining these patients, you're going to have a capacity problem, right? Or if you're not good at retaining them, like, hey, we just sent you 30 new patients. And what happens in 6 months when they're supposed to get their teeth cleaned again? Like, so it just understanding that and realizing these problems don't go away, but just like you guys said, that we can also, if we think farther into it, we can provide solutions to future problems that they're going to have. And even if, I'm trying to sell them on, the first solution to problem 1, and in the process, I mentioned the solutions to problems 2 and 3, like me suggesting the solution 2 and 3 will sell them on problem 1 because they've realized like, oh yeah, he actually has thought through quite a bit more than this. And it really shows the experience and kind of the credibility and authority within that sales environment.
Yeah. Do you have a specific story where this happened with a dentist, or maybe early in your career that you remember? It's like, man, this is like my to-go, situation.
Yeah, sure. So my very first dental practice that I worked with when I was kind of just starting, kind of in my story that I walked you guys through there. Like I said, when they very first came to me, they had a lot of capacity, had too much capacity, which means they're paying they're paying a lot in a lease for the building. They're paying hygienists who, don't have a full day, right? So the very first problem for them was, of course, we need to get more butts and seats. We need more hygiene patients, right? And so we fixed that problem. We fixed it almost too good. Like we fixed it so good that they were busting at the seams, and for a dentist who really wants to grow, that is a problem. There are some dentists who are fine to settle. And if they are at full capacity, it's fine. They'll just book out their scheduling farther out. But I'm really after the dentists who want to grow. So the next problem they ran up to was, okay, well, we don't have any more room for people. So we've got to find a new building, right? Like we've got to expand either on our existing building or move to a new location or whatever. They were able to find a new location that wasn't far away, that was much bigger. And we got into there. And since we already had the model of how to get more patients into that new location, we were able to get that going pretty quickly. But we had other issues that popped up, right? Like they brought on a dentist who had some really great expertise in implants, right? It's a higher end service for the dental space. And it became a challenge of, okay, well, how do we get him more business? We've only really been doing kind of the smaller stuff. How do we get more implant business aside from, the onesie twosie you might get via referral? So it was, again, like working to clearly identify that problem, work on and test and trial, articulate a solution, and then figure out something for that. So it's, again, it was fun for them. They're probably my first company where we've had several hoops to jump through like that, but it's awesome when you can help them through those problems and get to the best solutions they want to be in.
Absolutely. Wow. This has been such a good lesson for everyone. Honestly, like even for me, it's a great reminder right now, because we knew this, but we don't think about this that often, right? So it's good because now we're going to be taking a look at what we offer, and we're going to be asking ourselves, what are these problems that we're creating now, right?
And also in your discussions with your brother, because every day you're like, what if we do this, right? So thank you for I'm gonna get a book. I'm gonna get that book. If you give him as a cookie, I'm gonna relate it back to it's like, dude, what if we run this campaign and then my operational brain is going through the whole process? I'm like, how is that gonna look like with the team, and how's that gonna look like? So good reminder. So Jarem, thank you so much for bringing this point up for Fonzie. We need focus.
And I know we're coming close to an end, but there's a few topics that I want to cover too, right? Because Michael told us that you have been running this mastermind for like the last 4 years too, something like that. And I'm curious on what is for you the value on that. Why did you start that mastermind? And why personally and why as a goal for the community?
Sure. That's a very good question. So I, a few years back when I was really trying to systematize what I do, I was in Russell Brunson's Inner Circle. If you guys are familiar with that, it's a very high-end mastermind that you pay every year to be in. And it costs quite a bit. It was $25,000 when I joined. That's $50,000 a year now. Wow. It was a really awesome mastermind to be able to rub shoulders with insanely successful entrepreneurs, including Russell, and again, like to be able to problem solve within that, right? I'd go to the mastermind, I'd have a problem in my business, and I'd come into the mastermind and I'd articulate the problem I have in my business and get expertise from all these other business owners who are in every different industry you can imagine, but we're crazy successful at it. And you'd be amazed how many times a really, really great solution would come from somebody who's in a totally different industry than you, right? Yeah. That's kind of the power of the mastermind, getting all these minds, thinking on and helping you solve your problem. And that's a lot of what you pay for. Of course, you pay to have direct access to Russell. It was great to be able to directly ask him questions related to my business, related to my funnels, all that type of stuff. And when I joined that, it was really, really cool. I consider myself what I call a situational extrovert. Which means like by default, I'm an introvert. Like I'm totally fine just tinkering away in the man cave. But when situation arises kind of like this, I'm fine to be a little bit more extroverted. But even though I love spending that time, building funnels and creating marketing campaigns, all that type of stuff, I always felt like there needed to be a really great format or structure or something to build camaraderie around this general concept of building funnels or funnel hacking, right? Yeah. And I love going to the mastermind with Russell, but that was like 2 times a year. And I always felt like there should be something more at the local level. And even though there's really great success when it's super high level and people are paying a whole bunch of money, I'm like, but I don't feel like it has to be some big elaborate fancy thing. Like it should be something at the local level that anybody can come to, as long as they check their ego at the door. Like you can have the 6, 7, 8 figure people in there, as well as people who have just barely started their journey and they're still in a 9 to 5 and they're trying to figure out how to make a little more money with a side hustle, right? So I created that selfishly just so I could have more people around me and be able to enjoy that. I guess a little bit different than like your traditional mastermind. It's even though I created it, it's not like Jarem's mastermind. It's not filled with a bunch of students who are following me on a course. Like the only 2 requirements that we have for the group is you have to live in Utah. So I'm sorry for anybody else who's listening to this that's not in Utah.
Sorry,
yeah, you have to live in Utah. And you have to be an active user of ClickFunnels. We put that in place because I just didn't want a group full of lurkers, right? People that are, well, I'm thinking about one day doing it. I'm like, no, like ClickFunnels is not that expensive. I'm like, invest in it and be here as a real user so that you can contribute, and left it very open-ended like that. When I started originally, it wasn't really super structured. It was almost like math lab from high school. If you guys ever had that, like I was in math lab in high school and college for hours at a time, where it's like, I'm coming in here for all the hours you guys are open because I can't figure out my math problems. Right.
Yeah.
So I originally created it as something like that, where it's like, hey, I've been using ClickFunnels for quite a while. I've designed tons of funnels, even designed for some big people out there. Like I can be here to help a few people, and I can also glean some good insights from other people. And so that's kind of how it started initially. But now it's a little bit more like a think tank. We usually meet once a month, and we have someone who comes in and presents on a given topic that's usually like a cross section of the overall picture of online marketing or digital marketing. So we'll get somebody who will come and talk about podcasting, or someone who talks about high ticket sales, or someone who talks about how to run ads on Facebook or Google or whatever. And we also have open networking, and it's just been really fun to have something like that is really just like a give back to the community.
Yeah.
And allows people, when we're tinkering away in ClickFunnels, and yes, it's awesome to be virtual. It's awesome to, via the software connect with you guys all the way in Florida. I feel like there's still that extra, almost like X factor thing about being able to connect with somebody in person. It's that little bit more that you build trust to, take someone's advice and implement it, or create a affiliate relationship or a JV relationship. And it's been pretty fun. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that the value of being in person is huge. And that's just another reason for us to move to Utah. I mean,
right.
That's a requirement. We got to go.
Jarem, as we wrap up, what will be your number one action point for a business owner? Right? Like obviously, we could tackle it on the content side of things. We can tackle it on the entrepreneurial type of things, like something that is meaningful to you too.
My number one action point. Give me a little bit more.
All right, so
move to Utah.
Go to his mastermind. Other than that, working with you. So obviously, the show's called Content is Profit, right? So how do we get to that frictionless sale? So
I have an idea. To frame this question. So obviously, we say content, right, is the vehicle for that frictionless sale, right? It's supposed to remove these objections when people come through the door and create this trust, this authority, right? But you are on the side as well of the funnel. What happens after they consume this content and they are like, ready. I want more, right? So what would be your number one action point for when these people are ready to, step into a funnel, or step into called next steps?
Sure. Well, I think you kind of answered there within your question. I think it is all about content. And some people hear the word content and they may quickly think of something like blogging, like really long form articles, that type of stuff. And maybe that feels daunting to them. And maybe something like this, a podcast, feels daunting to them because they're a little bit afraid of the camera, or whatever it is. Like there's all these different formats of content that you can employ in your business, and where you're lacking in growth in your business, and even just in the credibility and authority where you can position yourself to a point that someone says, hey, I don't know everything about this guy, but he seems to know what he's talking about. I'll go the next step. Like, I think that is the power of content in any form out there, right? Even if we're directly selling something, even if you don't have a big long form type of content like a podcast or a blog, like content is all throughout funnels. And of course, like a funnel is just a very intentionally designed website, right? Like you think about any process you go through. In fact, if you go into a store, right, and you're kind of just looking around, perusing, right? I know everybody, to feel safe, when a greeter comes and they say, "Hey, is there anything you're looking for?" You're like, "No, I'm just looking," right? Like you don't have to be pushy, but you can still give them a little bit of guidance or a little bit of direction, right? Like if you see them in a particular area of the store, like you could still provide a little bit of input, and that experience that you can provide in retail in person, just try and think about what that could look like in a funnel, what that could look like in an online format, right? If you had someone who clicked on an ad or however they got to your funnel, and they kind of got halfway through the process of buying something, right? They provided their name, their phone number, email, and then they, for whatever reason, stopped at the credit card. There's a very, very good chance that they are still a buyer. They're just right on the fence. And sometimes content is just like, hey, we just need to provide a little bit more information, a little bit more context, right? Like when we run ads and build out a funnel for dentists, I don't know really know why, but in Utah, like it's very, very saturated. There's a lot of dentists, right? So like, why should somebody come to the practice I'm advertising for as opposed to another one, right? If everything else is the same, if they have awesome reviews on Google and the price is the same, like why else should they come? Like if they started to go through this process in the funnel and they haven't made it all the way through yet, see what additional information you could provide. Like it's not pushy sales. It's just giving context to things, and you'll be surprised how many times that little bit of additional information is what brings somebody over. So like in my case, when we're running ads to get a patient in the door, while we do say, hey, you can come in and get your teeth cleaned for $97 and we think we're awesome and here's awesome reviews. Like in addition to that, you could also say, hey, in our practice, we're actually open on Saturdays, so you can come here outside of the normal work week, or we're open early and late, so you can come in before work or after work. Or if you have to come in and unfortunately you have to get a filling or a root canal done, hey, we have these awesome, really nice TVs up above your chair, and we show Netflix, so you can kind of watch whatever you want. Like they seem like very, very basic things, but as you continue sharing that conversation and providing more content to them, there's really powerful context in that content. I think a lot of times those little things you can share win people over a lot more, especially if they're right on the fence. And if you're not saying anything, they're going to go to another competitor. So just look to share additional content, and sometimes just sharing it in an unstructured, non-salesy type format will win over a lot of people. So don't be afraid of that process.
Wow. Thank you. I love it. I wrote it here as powerful context in that content. I love that phrase. I'm definitely going to start using that. Thank you, Jarem.
Stolen, Jarem. Stolen.
All right.
We'll give you proper credit.
Dude, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, we do have a question here. I want to reframe it. This is the last question of the show. But, where will you be if you did not, follow that little knack when marketing, spoke to you?
Sorry, can you say it one more time?
Where will you be if you did not follow that little thing that when marketing spoke to you? Where will you be right now?
I just think you're going to be, where would I be?
Yeah, you.
If I didn't follow that, oh, that's a good question. I'd probably be, shoot, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever thought of that. like the thing that pulled me into the marketing world.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we ask this question normally, is like, where will you be if you do not publish, right? Like in your case, you do publish a ton with the paid media that you run for the dental leads, right? But like in your story specifically, I want to be like, okay, marketing, that was like the thing that made you make that jump on that. But maybe for the practices that you work with, and where will they be if they don't publish, not even like with paid media, nothing, or like create the content that gives context, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I just say in general, you will slowly be forgotten. I think you guys know this experience as well as anything else. If you're doing anything in the realm of online marketing, things move fast, right? And the opportunity, literally the opportunity that we have in front of us now today is gone tomorrow. Even if I can buy the thing today and I can also buy it tomorrow, like, especially if it's like business related, right? If I could go invest in a course now today, or I can invest in it tomorrow, what if I got it today and started implementing it right now today? I'd be a day ahead of when I'd get it tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And believe it or not, if you have enough tomorrows, you will miss opportunities like that. And they're great opportunities for you to grow, for you to progress. And even if you take all the shiny objects of marketing out of the picture,
Yeah.
like, as we have the opportunity to serve other people, if you don't get over your personal fear or whatever obstacle may be getting in the way of you doing your next thing, if it's publishing content or whatever it may be, if you don't get over that, like, you won't know how many people you could have made connections with and help them out because you couldn't overcome this hurdle. And I'm like, do you really want somebody to be writing, like, when you die at the end of your life, do you want your eulogy to be that empty where it's like, well, he was a nice guy, but he just never overcame that thing? I feel like, as hard as it is, like, life is all about running into challenges, running into obstacles, and finding ways around them or over them. And I feel like, if for nobody else, I feel like that gives me more drive, more swagger in my step, and helps me to be more confident in my business, to be more confident as a father, as a husband. And of course, it does wonders to help other people. So I think it's about routinely learning to be okay, being in a position of discomfort, and working at overcoming whatever challenge is right here in front of us.
Wow. That's
Thank you.
Standing ovation. Standing ovation. That was amazing. Thank you, Jarem.
Believe it or not, I'm standing.
And I just want to add here another fun fact. Let's end with a fun fact, because we started the episode with a bunch of fun facts. So we had this guest called Joseph Hansen come to the show, and he talked about being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Which is what you just mentioned. And guess what? He is from Utah.
Sweet.
We're going to have to connect you guys.
I like it.
Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah. Jarem, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you if they want to have an awesome conversation like the one that we just had?
Oh, yeah, very good question. So, anything dental related, you can go to dentalleads.com. Obviously, that's probably a very, very small subset of your listeners. One other place I'm actually in the process of launching right now. We'll have a podcast up here within the next week or so. So hopefully by the time you guys listen to this podcast, it should be live. But even though I work with dentists, I still feel like I want to dabble a little bit. Even if it's more in a like coaching or consulting type role, I want to dabble and help other people and other businesses, because I've been in that general space before. And I know that, like, these core foundational principles, like publishing content regularly, consistently, can grow your business. I know that, what I do in running ads and building and running funnels, all that type of stuff, can help grow tons and tons of businesses out there. So a new podcast that I'm launching is localfunnels.com. It's really going to be a podcast that takes this overarching concept of funnel marketing and building funnels and funnel hacking, all that type of stuff, and shows how we can take that concept and apply it to a local level. And you can take a small business and get them really, really big results.
Wow. Oh, so good. Where were you?
Amazing.
Where were you 5 years ago? This is exactly what we needed when we first started.
Literally.
Yes. Okay. Sweet. I'm not gonna miss it. For sure.
Yeah. No, that's gonna be amazing.
So awesome.
Is the show gonna be called Local Funnels?
Yep. Awesome. So go check it out. We're gonna leave all the links right in the description.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is scroll down.
Yeah. Sorry. Jarem, as soon as you have that link, send it to us too.
Send it.
In case we publish this before that goes live, so we can update it and add the link in there.
Okay, sweet. I can do that.
Awesome. Dude, it was a pleasure. What a fun conversation we just had. Thank you so much for being with us. Fonzie, any last words?
No, thank you so much. It was amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys. I love the energy. Keep it up. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
With that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Continuous Profit Podcast. Go ahead and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button and follow us on social media at BeastBrosco.
That's right. And if you find this episode impactful, which I am sure you did, don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.